This is the second part of the lesson 2.1 for 8th grade math, accelerated math. And we're continuing on the discussion of equations of lines and point slope formula. So we're going to look at some story problems now and interpret them into story problems and figure out how to write the equation that represents that. So looking at our story problem, it says Tanner is paid $12 per delivery in addition to his weekly salary. So he gets a salary plus he gets a $12 for every delivery that he makes. So $12 for one delivery, 12 plus 12 for two deliveries, 12 plus 12 plus 12 for three deliveries, and so on. So he gets $12 for every delivery. Now it says last week he makes 8 deliveries and his weekly paycheck was $256. So there's a lot of information in that problem. I know that if he made 8 deliveries, that gave him $256. Now, you're not going to do 256 divided by 8. That's not going to give you like how much he makes, per delivery, because we already know how much he makes per delivery. It's $12. The question is, this is what we don't know. So at number 18, it says, write an equation in slope-intercept form. So that means our answer has to be in the form y equals mx plus b. X is going to represent the number of deliveries. Y is representing the amount of his weekly paycheck. So let's start with the y equals mx plus b. So what do I know here? I know that x and y are going to stay x and y because they're my variables, and x is going to represent something and y is represent something else, and that can change. So maybe the next week he'll do 4 deliveries, and then one after that he'll do 20. So those are variables, they're going to stay variables. The question is, what's the slope? So think about what the slope is. The slope is how much things are changing. So every time he does a delivery, how much does his paycheck change? Every time he does a delivery, he gets $12, and so $12 is the slope. That's how much it's changing every time. So what I do know is I can say $12 times x plus, now the question is, what does he get for a salary? So if he makes no deliveries, he's still going to get money because he gets a weekly salary plus he gets the delivery money. So that's the question I don't know. So how can I do this? Think back to what we've just been doing on previous problems. I know the slope. I also know that one of the inputs is 8. So if I put in 8 deliveries, I get out $256. So if you ignore the story problem and just look at this, that's just like the last set of problems that we did. I have a point and I have a slope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use point slope formula, and I'm going to plug it in. So y minus 256 is equal to 12 times x minus 8. Y minus 256 is equal to 12x minus 96. I'm going to add 256. And I'm going to get y is equal to 12x plus 160. And so that's the equation that represents what Tanner makes. So that's the answer to question number 18. Now the question for number 19 says, what does the y-intercept represent? So the y-intercept in my equation is the 160. So what does 160 represent in this problem? This is a story problem, so we have to put it in context. Our answer has to be in context. So it represents $160, but what is that? Is that how much he gets per delivery? What was it that we were looking for there? Look back at what I wrote first. 12 times the delivery plus the salary. The 160 is his weekly salary. And that's what it represents. What does the slope represent? What does the 12 represent? So in this problem, 12 what? It's $12 per delivery. With story problems, you have to give context to your answers, and that's why you have to label them, because if you don't label them, it doesn't mean anything. So you label it with dollar signs, words, whatever it takes to label that answer to clarify what it is you're talking about. By the way, fun fact, in America, if you're writing $12, you write it like that. You do not write it like that. That is not correct. So don't let me see you do that. You write it like that. Okay, let's go to the next problem. Chad and Annie go to a pick-your-own-apple orchard. The total cost includes an entry fee. So that tells me that if I just walk in the orchard, I have to pay a fee. Then you pick apples. So Chad, he picks 20 apples and he pays $15 total. Annie picks 34 apples and she pays $22. Now, if I wanted to know the price per apple, can I just do $15 divided by 20 apples and find out how much each apple costs? Is it going to be the same for Chad as for Annie? What's the difference? So if you look at the problem, Annie's picking more apples, so she pays more money, which makes sense. But the thing is if you just do 15 divided by 20, you get a different number than 22 divided by 34. So does that mean Annie gets a better deal? What's happening when you go in the apple orchard? Okay, so you got to think about these things like you're paying this fee and then you pay per apple. Okay, so number 21, it says, which is the independent variable? Is it the number of apples picked or the total cost? For an independent variable, which one do you control? Okay, when Chad goes in, what does he control? Can he control how many apples he picks, or can he control the total cost? What has to happen first? He has to pick the apples first, and that will determine the total cost. So the independent variable is the apples, the number of apples picked. And so the dependent variable is the result. So the dependent variable would be the total cost. This one's the dependent variable. Now that's important because when we graph it, I'm going to skip down here to making our graph. The x-axis is always for the independent variable. Okay, if you don't do it that way, it is not going to be a very understandable graph. It'll just be backwards and it won't make sense. And so you need to make sure that you're doing the independent variable on the x-axis, and then the variable will be on the dependent variable will be on the y-axis. So this one is going to be total cost. And notice I put dollar signs because that's what we're talking about, how many dollars. Now if I say, well, Chad picked 22 apples and he paid $15, I'm going to go over 22 and up to 15. That's Chad right there. And Annie, she picked, how many? 34 apples. Oh, wait, Chad picked 20 apples. Let's fix that. Chad picked 20 apples for $15. And Annie picked 34 apples and pays $22. So I could graph this, get a straight edge and connect the dots. I've got this line, okay? And so this would be helpful, like if I know, well, if I'm going to pick 12 apples, it's going to cost $10 if my line is right, which it might be a little bit off because I didn't use a straight edge. If I pick 2 apples, it's going to cost how much money? So why is it that if I pick 0 apples, it's not costing $0? Why is that? What is the deal with that situation? If you look back what's happening, there is an entry fee. So the equation is going to be the entry fee plus the number of apples times the cost of them. And that's going to equal the total. So thinking about your story problem in this way and thinking about the things that go into making that total, that helps us get to where we need to be. Now, if you look at this, how can I figure this out? So again, think back to what we've learned earlier in the lesson, point-slope formula. Because we've been learning point-slope formula, what do I have here? I have Chad. Can you write an ordered pair representing Chad? What did Chad do? He picked 20 apples and it cost him $15. What did Annie do? Write an ordered pair for Annie. 34 apples, $22. So if I have 2 ordered pairs and I have to write an equation in point-slope form, in slope-intercept form, I can use point-slope formula to do that. So remember, the number 1 step is find the slope. So if I do 15 minus 22 over 20 minus 34, so that's going to be negative 7 over negative 14 equals positive 1/2. In terms of this problem, what does that mean? 1/2 what? What are we talking about? What's a change? So the change is per apple, and so since I'm talking about money, that's half of $1. That's 50 cents. So that's my slope. So number 2, second thing I'm going to do is just pick one of the points. It can either be Chad or Annie. I'll just pick Chad. So y minus 15 equals, I'm going to keep it as 1/2 just because it's easier to work with that, and then x minus 20, and then I'm going to simplify. So y minus 15 equals 1/2 x minus half of 20 is 10. So I'm running out of room, so I'll just go back and erase it in a minute. Y equals 1/2 x minus 10, and I add the 15. So that's y equals 1/2 x plus 5. That's my equation. It's in slope-intercept form. So that's the answer to number 22. So I'm going to come up here and let's write that y equals 1/2 x plus 5. So that's the answer. And then the next questions are just as important. What does it mean? What does all of that mean? So graph the equation. We've really done that because we already have these points down here. But let's think about graphing it from slope-intercept form. So if I do that, I'm going to start at 5, and I'm going to go up 1, so up to 6 and over 2. Up 1 and over 2, up 1 over 2. Okay, so I can continue that pattern. And notice how my points that are green, they fit right in there. And so I get my straight edge and I connect the dots, and that's the equation of this line. So what does the y-intercept represent? What is the 5? What does that mean in this problem? So again, go back to the context. What are Chad and Annie doing? What is it that we don't know? We already figured out that 50 cents is the slope. Okay, but 50 cents for what? Is that the entry fee or is that per apple? What is it? So $5 is what it costs if they don't pick any apples. So do you think that that's the price per apple or is that the entry fee? It's the entry fee because that's what you get if you pay, or if you pick 0 apples. You would do y equals $0.50 per apple. So for 0 apples plus $5, that's y equals 5. And so that's going to be your 0 apples is $5. And so, like, I guess it would just be entertainment if you were going at that point. Okay, what does the slope represent? So again, back to the 50 cents. The way we write 50 cents in America is you write a $sign, decimal, 0.50, not 0.5, 0.50 because it's money, it's hundredths of a dollar. It is incorrect to write 0.50 and then a cent sign because that means half of a penny. That's what that means. Look at how many signs you see around that people that do not know, they'll write something as like 0.99 cents, and I'm like, what is that? That's less than that's less than a penny. That is incorrect. So 50 cents, it's half of a dollar, and that's why we write it like that. So 50 cents will be the price per apple. So we have this problem with Chad and Annie. We started out with some information. We translated it into a graph, ordered pairs, an equation. What is the slope? What is the y-intercept? What does that mean? And we got all of that from just those 2 sentences or 3 sentences that are up there. Okay, let's go to another story problem. 16 friends are going on a one-day whitewater rafting trip. The group paid $673. So I had 16 people and it cost $673. That's an ordered pair. The input was 16 people. The result of 16 people going was $673. Now, if we look at the sign down here, whoever made this sign didn't do a very good job because it's not really that helpful. It says one-day trip is $28 per person. That means if I have another person go, it's another $28. And if I have another person go, it's another $28. That sounds like a slope to me. $28 per person. Okay, so I'm going to say M equals 28. I don't know where I'm going to put that yet. Plus a guide fee. Okay, that sign's not very good because it didn't tell me what the guide fee was. So that's what I don't know. Question mark. I don't know what the guide fee is. So I'm going to pay M dollars per person. Let me write it up here. So I'm going to pay $28 for however many people go, and that's going to be my input variable. I know that because that's what I can control. Plus you have to pay a guide fee. Now the guide fee, I don't know what that is. I can't say X because I already have an X, so I'll call B, and that's going to equal my total. So that almost looks like slope-intercept form, but I need to find the guide fee. The guide fee, I don't know what it is. Now I'm going to say right here, there are other ways that you can go about figuring this out, and I'm sure that many of you could do that. However, we are going to use this problem in context of what we've been learning, point-slope formula. So I'm going to skip down to 27. Write an equation slope-intercept form. X is the number of people, Y is the cost. So when you're writing an equation in slope-intercept form, you need a slope and you need a y-intercept. I don't have a y-intercept. What do I have? I have an ordered pair. I have a point. I have a slope. And so I can use point-slope formula. So I'm going to say y minus 673 equals 28 times x minus 16. And I'm going to simplify that. So this is what I get when I simplify all of that. I distributed my 28, I added 673 to both sides, and I get this equation. So that answers number 27. There's my equation. So now the other questions just have to do with interpreting everything. So if you look at that equation, the 28, you know that that's per person. We've already figured that out. So if you think about it, if you're going to go on this trip, let's say you take 5 people. So it's going to be 28 times 5 plus 225. What is that 225? That's the guide fee. So the guide fee is $225. That's the y-intercept. It represents a $225 guide fee. Notice that 28 doesn't say what is the y-intercept. So your answer, if you just say 225, that's not right. It says what does the y-intercept represent? And it represents a $225 guide fee. What does the slope represent? So you're not just going to say 28 or $28. What does it represent? $28 per person. So when you're asked these questions in a story problem, you need to make sure you explain what the numbers represent in terms of the problem. So give a good answer. Okay, the last set of problems in this lesson. At an altitude of 2 kilometers, the barometric pressure is 600 millimeters of mercury. That's what that stands for. At 7 kilometers, the barometric pressure is 300. So the higher you go, the pressure decreases. So you know when you go up in a plane and like what's happening is your ears pop and stuff, and that's because the pressure is, the higher you get, the pressure is decreasing. So the lower you get, the pressure is increasing. So like if you go up in the mountains and your bottle of lotion explodes, that's because the pressure decreased, and so it's filling with air, and so it's exploding. So if we can go about this a couple ways. You don't have to answer all these questions in order. So kind of like we did the Chad and Annie question, this is very similar to that. Can you write an ordered pair or 2 ordered pairs for this problem? So pause the video, write 2 ordered pairs. Part of that is you have to know which one is the independent variable. Is it the 2 kilometers, how high you go, or is it the pressure? Which one can you control? Can you control how high you go, or can you control the pressure? Which one comes first? So write 2 ordered pairs. Okay, the ordered pairs you should have written were 2, 600. The kilometers are the independent variable. And then 7, 300. Since the kilometers altitude, actually I'm going to write altitude in kilometers, that makes better sense. And then this is going to be the pressure, and that's in millimeters of Hg, which is mercury. When you're doing graphs, you want to represent the unit that it's being measured in, whether it's dollars or millimeters of mercury or whatever. Okay, we can graph these 2 ordered pairs. So if I go to 2 and 600, and then 7 and 300, I can see that the pressure is dropping. So if I was to sketch a quick line like that, it's going to look something like that. Get a straight edge and do yours because it will look better. I just can't on this. Anyway, so that's what it's going to look like. So I see that the pressure is going down. When you see it going down, that's telling me that we're going to have a negative slope. So your slope is going to be going down, so it's going to be negative. And so that helps me make sure I get the right slope. So number 30, it says write an equation in slope-intercept form to represent the relationship. Well, here again, what do I need to write an equation? I need a slope and a y-intercept. I don't have either one of those, but I do have 2 points. And from those, I can find a slope. So 600 minus 300 over 2 minus 7, that's 300 over negative 5, which is negative 60. So that's my slope. M equals negative 60. So it's going down just like I thought. And if you look at this, it's going down 60. One box is 60 that way over 1. That's exactly what it looks like. Okay, now as far as the equation, I'm going to need to use my point-slope formula. So just pick a point. I'll use the smaller number, 300, equals negative 60 times x minus 7. So y minus 300 equals negative 60x plus 420. I know 60 times 7 is 420 because 6 times 7 is 42. Then I'm going to add 300 to both sides. And That's my equation. So number 31, it says graph the equation. If you used a straight edge, you should see that your line should go right through 720 at 0, because look, that's what the equation says it's going to do too. So in this problem, it's a story problem. What does the y-intercept represent? I didn't say what is the y-intercept. What does it represent? 720 what? 720 millimeters of mercury at 0 kilometers. So if you're at sea level, that's the pressure. What does the slope represent? Negative 60. That means it's going down, and so it's going to drop 60 millimeters of mercury per what? Per kilometer. So when you describe what these things mean, you need to make sure that you say what it's talking about. And that just reminded me, let's see, where was it? Oh, nope, I think we got it. Okay, we're good. So just make sure you're very descriptive about all your labels and everything. Write point slope formula maybe on your paper. Remember what it is. You use it often enough, you will not need to worry about remembering it because you'll know it.